I don't know about you, but I love the aspect of giving people hope. There's a lot of things out there that can distract our attention and focus on other things, and yet when we feel hope, it empowers us, even though maybe things aren't going the way we want, but hope is almost like an energy drink. It fills you, and you're not afraid of what's ahead of you. And so I believe the Bible is filled with hope. Sometimes I think we can twist things and make them seem differently, but if we really look things from Jesus' perspective, we will always see hope, even when it doesn't look like it. And so as we go this morning to the book in 2 Peter, I want to draw out a few things. I titled my message, it's interesting, I titled it, I Have Everything I Need. Why isn't it always working? Have you ever felt like that, where you have done things and you've set yourself up, you've ticked off the things that need to be ticked off, you need to cover the things you're covering, you think, now I think it's going to turn. Now it's going to turn. I've done everything I know that I can do. And yet, to face the situation, things unchanged. It just doesn't work. Sometimes I can be very discouraged in my Christian life. Sometimes I can, even if it depends where my focus is, I can lose entire hope of what's ahead of me. It's not working. Many times I've been in a situation where I've read the scriptures and I've heard messages. Oh man, I heard messages coming out of my ears about truth, about things that are going to shift, things that benefit my life, where breakthrough's coming, where hope is going to be birthed. All those things, only to walk away even more discouraged than I was before I heard those words. So why doesn't it work? I've done everything that I know that I can do. How come it doesn't work? And I think that's a question that we need to ask ourselves, because one of the things that I'm recognizing more and more in my Christian life is there are sometimes questions that don't seem to have answers. Sometimes life throws a curve at you and you're not sure how to deal with it, because that's what life does sometimes. But I know this, that no matter what we go through, no matter what we face, the obstacle that's in front of us, the people that seem to be in our way, in the midst of it, God always has a way. There is a clear perspective. There is a clear answer. There is something beyond the confusion that sometimes we experience, sometimes many times. And what I want to do this morning is I want to give you hope. Life is very normal, no matter where you're at and how you deal with things. Life is very normal, and sometimes we have more questions than we seem to have answers. Sometimes we do all the right things. We tick off all the right stuff. We put into place what needs to be put into place, and we're told if we do this stuff, then this will equal this, and somehow it's not equaling that. It's like, why does it work for somebody else and not for me? Ever felt like that? You ever felt like they seem to always get the breaks in life, but when it comes to me, I got to push through, and it just doesn't happen. Next person, he walks around like he's won the lottery, and it's like, man, how come that person gets it and not me? Why isn't it working? Sometimes we can grow up in a church culture and we're told if we do certain things equals certain stuff, and so we try hard to do those certain things and it doesn't equal that stuff. Why not? Sometimes I think we can get so discouraged that we lose hope, that we don't even believe anymore. We just think, you know what, whatever. The question I'm going to ask this morning, done everything I know, I've got everything I have, but why does it not seem to work? In 2 Peter chapter 1, and I have it up there for you, I'm going to read a few verses. I think I might just read some and I'm going to stop, because I think Peter writes this letter, and as Peter writes this, and he's kind of like a pastor, kind of an overseer, kind of like a CEO of certain companies, if I can use that term, and so he's responsible for the well-being of a number of people that are not working for him, but he's given their care. And so he writes some things that in the first chapter of the second letter, he writes some things and he makes some declarations that when you read through it real quickly, it's like, wow, that's awesome. But if we stop and start looking at what is actually being said, and what is being said is spoken to us too. It's not just them, but it's truth that God speaks to us. And so in 2 Peter chapter 1, starting at verse 3, it says these words, by his divine power. He's focusing on God, okay? He's really making sure that God is in this picture. He says in verse 3 of 2 Peter chapter 1, by his divine power. Now I know this, that God's power is unlimited. It has no ceiling. It has no boundaries. It has no place where it's reached its peak. So what he's saying is, according to his divine power, in other words, he's filling their life with incredible faith. According to his divine power, it's not something we muster together, and it's not something we work hard at, but by his divine power. It's outside our realm. It's in a realm beyond us, he says. By his divine power. And then he relates this statement. He says, God has given us everything we need for life and godliness. I like how he clarifies that, because many times our minds can go, okay, what do I need to do? Okay, I need to start checking things off. I need to I need to do these things. And he starts off saying, listen, it's according to his divine power. His unlimitedness, his unlimited resources, his unlimited boundless and boundaryless and ceilingless power. He has given us, and then he uses the word, everything we need for life and godliness. The word everything is an interesting word because it's a really simple, small word in the Greek language. It's pas. It's easy to pronounce, pas. It's like almost you pass. It's so insignificant you just pass it. But rather the word everything signifies all. All. He has given us all. And it goes on, and it even goes even further. It says it speaks of the whole. How many times have you sat in at the restaurant or maybe at someone's house and they brought dessert, and this looks so good, but you only got a piece of it. And you imagine having the whole. And I love that. That's the thing when kids are out of the house and it's just two of us, many times I can have the all. Is it always healthy? Not necessarily, but that's beside the point. It includes the whole. And then he says it also talks about everything. All things. So he's emphasizing by that little word something huge for them to experience and us. He says, according to his divine power, God has given us everything, the whole, the all, everything, nothing left out that we need for life and godliness. So the question to ask is then why doesn't it work? We've been given it, why doesn't it work? I want to get into that in a few minutes. I just want to read a little further. Listen, it's important to understand that here in this small sentence, it's God is holding nothing back. He's not withholding anything. Sometimes we as parents, when we want to do something for our kids, and we kind of use it like with manipulation, right? If you do this, and then we'll release this, and if you do this, we'll release this, and if you do this, well, we can go to Disneyland. Sometimes we entice our kids to behave or do certain things because we want them to have a reward at the end of it to think about and go at. And here he says he's given us everything we need. It has nothing to do. He's held nothing back. It's not a deal that he makes with us. Now, if you do this and do this, I'll release this and release that. But rather he's saying it's all yours. It's all yours. It gets better. Just wait. But why isn't it working? He's held nothing back. Everything we need, he's given us. Everything. Notice it's not some things, or a few things, or the important things, but everything he has given us. I want to say this before we go on any further. It's important for us to understand that it's not about earning it. It's not about begging for it. It's not about striving for it or praying for it. Rather, he has given it to us. It's ours. It's ours. He says, according to his divine power, he's given us everything we need for life and godliness. It's interesting he uses those two words because he wants the imagery that everything is included. Not only your life, and when he talks about life, he doesn't talk about heaven's life. He doesn't talk about us going there. He's talking about the life we live right now. We have been given everything we need to live this life in such a way that we fulfill everything God promised in our life. Everything for life, here and now. You see, so often we can have this picture of life being the hereafter. I'm not living for the hereafter. I'm living for the now and what is yet to come. And then he says godliness. Not only for the here and now, but also for us modeling Jesus. He's given us everything for us to do those things. Live life now and to model Jesus. It's interesting, he goes on a little further and he explains how he's given us these things. He says this following the verse. He goes on and says he's given us everything we need for life and godliness. And then he says we have received all this. We've received all this by coming to know him. It's almost like he's saying, because you're in relationship with a Father, because you're in relationship with God, it's accredited to your account, your life, and what you do. He has supplied everything for that life. He says, you have received it by coming to know him. The interesting thing is, we receive this because we're in relationship with God. It's not because we earned our way anywhere. It's out of a relationship. Our relationship with God qualifies us for everything we need to succeed in life. I want to ask that question again. Why is it not working? Most things in life, if we're honest, come as a result of relationship. Now, sometimes the relationship doesn't have to be very deep, but we have to have connection in order to receive things. And he's telling us our connection with God opens the door for everything we need in life and godliness. Relationship is key. Jesus gives us, I wrote a note here, Jesus gives us the full meal deal. Everything we need, tools, how to have success and make the most of life. I don't know about you, but I read that and I go, that is amazing. Why doesn't it work? Why don't I experience that in my life? I want to talk this morning, the remainder of the service, on 3 reasons why it possibly doesn't work. Because I want to say this. First of all, it doesn't work isn't true. It always does work. We just may not understand what's going on in front of us. That leads us to the conclusion that it doesn't work. Let's not be fooled. God's promise never changes. His word never fails. So why then doesn't it work? 3 things that I want to leave you here this morning. Is that okay? 3 things? Simple, but profound. The first thing, why often it doesn't always work, is because we need to let's say this first. Before we go any further, we need to understand we're never, ever, ever, ever on God's bad list. Let's just clarify that right now. We're never on God's bad list. Sometimes we're under the impression that because it doesn't work, I must have done something wrong, or God has something against me because I maybe did something or said something or acted in a way that he's not happy, so it's not working. We do that with our kids, don't we? You didn't do what I asked, guess what? You don't get to go to Disneyland. Right? Well, maybe not Disneyland, maybe it's ride a bike or go shopping or spend allowance or whatever. I don't know what it is, but we do that all the time. You don't perform, you don't get. And so naturally we learn that habit as we grow up. It happens in the work world too. We don't do certain things, guess what? We don't get a raise, or we don't get this, or we don't have this happen to us. And so many times our culture mind is shaped by what we witness around us. I want to tell you, what we witness around us is not always true. But we learned that. And so sometimes we take it into our relationship with God that if something doesn't happen, it's because I'm on his bad list. I've done something wrong. And many times we self-evaluate and we look and we pace the floor. And what have I done wrong? We phone people. Tell me, what have I done wrong? And I want to tell you, nobody's on God's bad list. Nobody is. Because he sees us before we do anything. And he puts a stamp of approval on us. That's why when we get ourselves into trouble, he's there. That's why we're not showing, we're confused and we don't know what to do. He's there. That's why sometimes we get ourselves in hot water and there's trouble. He's there, not causing it, not bringing it about, not trying to teach me something, but he's there to walk me through it to see that that's not who I really am. We're not on God's bad list. He doesn't view us that way. He demonstrated that by going to the cross. That self-sufficient, his mind, if I can use that weird grammar, it made him satisfied. We are approved. We're not on God's bad list. Well, it doesn't work. I must have done something wrong. Oh, I did this and I did that. I'm going to pay for it now. God's not like that, church. Some of you, that's a freeing statement this morning because you've been living under the impression that God has been disappointed with you, and because of that, things don't work. I want to say God is never disappointed with you. He loves you so much that he made sure whatever was in the way was removed because he loved us so much. He values us even when we don't make good decisions, and sometimes we do the wrong things, and sometimes life just happens. But I want to tell you, it's not because we're on his bad list. It's like the Christmas time. He looks at his list and he checks it twice, see if you've been naughty or nice. It's like he doesn't have a list like that. When he sees us righteous, proved, sanctified, holy, made new, fresh, everything. He sees all that. But we don't see it all the time because we are in the midst of stuff. We're not on God's bad list. I thought it was important just to clarify that first before we go any further. So then why doesn't it work? If it's been given to us, why doesn't it work? If it's something we don't work for, if it's something that we don't strive for, it's something that we don't aim, if all this stuff happens, if it's all based on his divine power, what's limitless, then why don't I see it in my life more often? First of all, we need to recognize that we're not on God's bad list. The second thing why I think it doesn't always work is this. We have to learn and understand what it is that he's given us. You see, if we don't know what he's given us, we can't grab a hold of it. Sometimes we learn to distorted picture what that looks like, and we're trying to obtain that, and it's just not working. And it's not that we're getting missed out. It's just ignorance is stopping us from experiencing. I've used this many times before, and that gets boring after a while, but it's simple. If I give you a bank card that's loaded with endless amount of money, and you don't have the PIN number or know how it works, you can go through life broke, having nothing. It's not working. How many times have you been to a debit machine and, paying for stuff, and it's like it's air, well, and then they rub it, right? Have you noticed them rub it? It's like as if that's, going to help. Sticking in there still doesn't work, and then there's a lineup behind you, and you know what they're thinking. You know what they're thinking. Get your stuff in order. Debit card isn't working. It's not that there isn't any funds there. There's something we don't know what's going on. And when we find it out and we understand it, we can fix it, we can rectify it, and then we can capitalize on it. This is what God's given us, is almost like a debit card, if I can use that analogy. But if we don't know how to use it, we won't get the benefits from it. And if we don't believe it's ours to spend, we'll have it here and we won't do anything with it because we feel, well, I haven't done enough for it. Well, I know it's been given to me, but I really need to earn it, so I'm going to try hard next time to do this, and then I'll feel a little better about putting the debit card in there and taking money out of there when God says it's all yours. It's for your life, it's for your success, it's for your hope, it's for your freedom, it's for everything in it to design you to be who I've created you to be. Stick it in the machine. Learn. Understand what it is. There's a difference. I've been in school long enough that I know there's a difference between having knowledge of something and understanding something. I just about fell off the stage. Whew. There's a difference of knowing and actually understanding. Have you ever argued with somebody that knows it? I know. You've said it 50 minutes, I know. Well, then why don't you do? You see, there's a difference between knowing and understanding. We can take our vehicle to a mechanic that knows everything, but we want to take it to someone that understands how this system works. I'm telling you, God knows how the system works. And he's made sure that he's credited our account so that it works every time. But if we don't know or we don't understand, we're going to miss out on it. Sometimes we can grow up in a culture where we have to work our way to those levels, and I'm telling you, he's already given it to us. We need to learn to understand what he's given us. I'm telling you, living a life of revelation transforms people's character. Revelation transforms character. What do I mean by revelation? Revelation is the aha moment that you recognize, you see it, you know it's there, it's yours. It changes your life. Knowledge will never change you. It's understanding that knowledge that will reshape how you live and how you think. Am I making sense here? So why doesn't it always work? Well, one, I really don't know what I've been given. I don't understand what it is that he's given me. I can read verses like this and go, well, that's wonderful. Close it up and walk away and try to live it. Try this. And walk away disappointed more often than none. We got to learn and understand what he's given us. There's another thing here I wrote down that I think is important. First of all, we need to understand we're never on God's bad list. We're never on God's bad list. Oh, now he won't talk to me for 2 weeks because I said some bad words. It's not like that. We laugh at that, but sometimes we live like that. We're not on God's bad list. Second, we need to learn to understand what it is he's given us. That's why Jesus spent as much time as he did with these 12 disciples, because he wanted them to understand and learn, because he knew he wasn't sticking around much longer, because he was going to empower them to be him on the earth. And he wanted them to make sure and understand what they had. And many times they walk through life going, I can't believe it. This just happened. I don't know what's going on. And Jesus is like, what's the big deal? Well, I went to this, what's the big deal? You see, they're learning and understanding what they've been given, so when we understand what we have and what we've been given, we can exercise it as a normal part of life. Oh, whew. I should be a wrestler. Play that music and, do this thing and I got everything. And as I learn, I get free. Not because I'm not free, I just know now that I'm free. I realize for the first time, sometimes when I see what God's declared over me, it's like, oh, that gives me hope. That changes everything. I'm going to live like that every day. That's a game changer. That changes everything. Okay, and it's not just knowledge base. It's experiential, it's revelation. There's three kinds of knowledge in the Greek language, and the first knowledge speaks of educational knowledge. You go to school and you acquire understanding, you acquire learning. And then there's another type of knowing where you've studied it, but now you're intrigued and you're going deeper and you really are starting to understand stuff. It's not only that these chairs are made of the cloth, but now the other knowing is I know where that material comes from. I know how the effort put in there. I know what the background, all those different things. So it's deeper. And then there's the other knowing where it's just revelation knowledge, where it becomes so real. It impacts your life. I want to live. The first knowing is always there to drive us to the next one. And we reach the next one, it drives us to the other one, where it becomes a lifestyle, walking in understanding. We need to learn and understand what it is he's given us. None of us are excluded on anything. We all been given the same stuff. And sometimes one of the greatest helps, listen to this, church, sometimes the greatest helps is when you've experienced it, you have the privilege to walk beside someone else that's yet experiencing it. Not pointing out, oh man, it could be this, it could be why. It's, hey, I've learned, come, let me share my understanding how it's changed my life. It's happened to me, it can happen to you. See, that's hope. Well, if you only had the understanding that I had. I don't want that kind. I want the revelation kind that changes my character. And when my character changes, I never look down on somebody else that's not received that yet because they are in process of learning. Let me encourage you, let's always be learning. Let's always be learning. Third and final, why doesn't it seem to work? Is we don't mix it in to our everyday life. How many times don't yell out anything because the person might be beside you, have tasted baking of some sort, and when you bit into it, you knew there was an ingredient missing? Nobody? I must be the lucky one. And sometimes it's been in your home, so don't laugh. No, just kidding. Chocolate pie. Oh my goodness. I could have the whole thing. I dip into that with a fork and put it in my mouth and go, oops, something's missing. And you chew and you swallow and you chew, knowing that something's missing. You feel ripped off. I went to Tim Hortons one time. And I said, I have a medium coffee, 2 milk. They know my order already. They see it, it's almost there for me. It's like another 2 milk. Yes, they know my order. I get there and take my drink and sip it back and almost spit it back in there. That's cream in there. Went back to the thing. I said, there's cream in here. I need milk. Sorry, cream is way too sweet for me. Oh, no problem. Changed it. Sat down, sip, same thing. Oh my goodness. Like, what don't they know? Went back a third time and said, I hate bothering you, but there's still milk in it. There's still cream in it. Oh, our apologies, our sincere apologies. They didn't offer me free coffee for a month or nothing. They just, fourth time I sat down, cream. The guy, I said, that's it. I'll just drink it. He said, no, you ordered that, then you need to get it. I said, just get me a black. They can't get that wrong. You know what happened was? Someone, when replacing the cream and milk, swapped them over. And so the button said milk, but it was giving cream. But they did not know that. They didn't know it. They even wrote on the limb, 2M. But the stuff that was advertised was not in there. I could be mad and angry and disappointed and think they just don't listen, they don't care, I'm offended, I'm all these things. But all what it was they didn't know what the problem was until number fourth time. Then they opened it up and said, oh, we have a problem. God wants us to live in revelation, always knowing what we have been given. Because he's intended for us, every last one of us, to live exactly what he's designed us to live. And the enemy wants to make it his goal to keep us ignorant, keep us focused on the circumstances and the situation around us and the things that are spoken over us. Because he knows, when we know, it changes our life. And it changes those around us. Wow. Can I read it once more in closing? According to his divine power, God has, not God will or God may, but God has given us everything we need for life and godliness. And we've received all of this by coming to know him, the one who called us to himself by means of his marvelous glory and excellence. And then he says in verse 4, and because of this glory and excellence, he has given us great and precious promises. And these are promises that enable us to share in his life and escape the influences around us. Isn't that awesome? Isn't that awesome? Let's pray.